So Hare Krishna everyone, welcome to our program on Janmashtami. This is a Janmashtami special class where we will discuss some Krishna Katha, try to immerse ourselves into the direct Krishna conscious mood for preparing ourselves, preparing our hearts to welcome the Lord day after tomorrow on Monday when we celebrate the auspicious festival of Janmashtami. So today's class will be a narration of two chapters from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is chapter number 4 and chapter number 5. Chapter number 4 is description of atrocities of Kamsa, and chapter number 5 is a narration of the discussion between Nanda Maharaj and Vasudev ji. So we will be following the flow of Srimad Bhagavatam. I have in fact mentioned the verse numbers as well as the short description what is mentioned in the words in the class. So you will be able to follow what we are reading in Srimad Bhagavatam very easily when we will display them in the slides. But before we enter into the chapters number 4 and 5 of Canto 10, let us start with a small bhajan which was very fond to Srila Prabhupada ji. And Prabhupada ji used to sing these bhajan at the beginning of the classes, specifically Bhagavatam classes. So we will start with this bhajan, maybe 8-10 minutes we will sing this. जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ जय गोपी जन वल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ जय गोपी जन वल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ जय गोपी जन वल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी ओ जय गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रिज जनरंजन 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 यमुना तीरवनचारी कुंज बिहारी यमुना तीरवनचारी कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी, जय राधा माधव, जय कुंज बिहारी, जय गोपी जन वल्लभ, जय गोपी जन वल्लभ, जय गिरिवरधारी, ओ जय गिरिवरधारी। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे रामो राम रामो हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे रामो राम रामो हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे रामो राम रामो हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे रामो राम रामो हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे रामो राम रामो हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे रामो राम रामो हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे रामो राम रामो हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे रामो राम रामो हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे रामो राम रामो हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे रामो राम रामो हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे रामो राम रामो हरे हरे। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय, श्री श्री जय राधा माधव की जय, जन्माष्टमी महामहोत्सव की जय। So we will do a small recitation of these verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet. नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। नमो ओं विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते इंद्रद्युम्न स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस् प्रभुपाद प्रियदासाय जगन्नाथ चतुर्नंदमूर्ते भक्त सुखाय कृष्ण कीर्तनेन नरसिंहेण रक्षिताय नमः। नमो ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारणे। So welcome everyone once again to our special program on Janmashtami on the occasion or on the eve of Janmashtami, where we will be discussing some Krishna Katha, and what better place, what better literature we can have for Krishna Katha other than Srimad Bhagavatam. So I have selected two chapters to discuss today in the class, which is the chapter number 4 and chapter number 5 from canto number 10. There is no special reason to select these chapters other than that I just wanted to continue to narrate Srimad Bhagavatam to our English class audience. On the eve of previous Janmashtami last year, we started this discussion with chapter number 1 and we finished till 3 chapters, chapter 1, 2 and 3 of canto number 10. So I thought that canto 10 has exclusive description of Krishna Katha, Krishna Leela. So why not continue in the same stream? And that is why I picked up from the following chapter, which is chapter number 4 and chapter number 5. And like Bhagavatam has very nice stories, very nice deep insights, deep lessons for life, for devotional life in particular. And chapter number 4 and chapter number 5 also actually provides a lot of insights on multiple occasions where it is quite charming and quite uh, deep to the soul as far as learning is concerned. So chapter number 4 is titled as Atrocities of Kim Kamsa. Now we are picking up the story from when Vasudev ji has exchanged the two children. He has exchanged he has exchanged Lord Krishna with Yog Maya. Yog Maya was given birth by Mother Yashoda, and Vasudev ji was in prison where Lord Krishna took birth, and he took Lord Krishna all the way to the place to Gokul where Mother Yashoda gave birth to Yog Maya. So when Mother Yashoda gave birth to Yog Maya, the baby girl, she was in deep sleep and she could not know whether the child born was a boy or a girl. So Vasudev ji in that situation went and uh, exchanged the children. He brought back Yog Maya, entered back into the prison house of Kamsa. He wore the shackles once again, and the situation became like as before. The door automatically closed, and so on. So that's where we are picking up the action from Srimad Bhagavatam, canto number 10, chapter number 4. So when Vasudev ji comes back to the prison house of Kamsa, the door automatically closes. So you remember that in the previous chapters, which we discussed last year, we narrated that how when Lord Krishna requested Vasudev ji to take him to Yashoda ji, to Gokul and exchange the children, the doors automatically opened up. The shackles of Vasudev ji automatically got cleared up. So when Vasudev ji now comes back to the prison house, the doors automatically get closed down and he wears his shackle as before. And as soon as this happens, the baby girl starts to crying loudly. When the baby girl starts to cry loudly, then it is heard by all the watchmen, all the guards that are there appointed by Kamsa, and they are actually waiting for this to happen. Immediately they inform Kamsa, and Kamsa, who was eagerly waiting for this moment, immediately rushed to the scene. And uh, why he was eagerly waiting for this? He was eagerly waiting because this was the eighth son of Devaki and Vasudev, and the Akashvani that happened actually mentioned that it was the eighth child of Devaki and Vasudev who would kill Kamsa. So Kamsa was eagerly waiting for this moment, that when this eighth child will come, I will quickly go and kill that child, and I will actually kill the reason for my death and will become immortal. So that was the mentality of Kamsa. So he immediately reaches the child. He immediately reaches the place to kill the child, and action continues. When Kamsa goes back and to kill the child, he snatches the child from the hands of Devaki. Devaki, who was holding the child very close to her heart, she was pleading to Kamsa. She started to plead to Kamsa that please do not kill this girl. Actually, she's a girl. She's not even a son. And how can she kill you? The Akashvani was about the son, that the son will kill you. But she's a girl, so she cannot kill you. And this girl actually in the future can become your daughter-in-law also. So there is no reason for you to kill this child. You have already killed my 6 children. So please have some mercy on me. Spare this child. And I have already lost so many children. Please give this child, this girl child, as a gift to me. So Devaki in her heart already knew that his son, Lord Krishna, has already taken birth and he is safe in Gokul along with Mother Yashoda. But now she, out of her nature, she was out of her nature, out of her compassionate nature. Both Vasudev and Devaki, they were devotees. They were of very compassionate nature. Out of her compassionate nature, she started pleading with Kamsa that please do not kill this girl. What harm this girl has done to you, please spare this girl and give this girl as a gift to me. However, cruel as Kamsa was, he did not listen to the pleadings of Devaki, and he mercilessly snatches the child from the hands of Devaki and holds the child by her legs and kneels down on his knees and looks for a slab of stone nearby, and wanted to dash the child against the stone so that the child can be killed. But as soon as he tries that, that child was not an ordinary child. That child was Yogmaya herself. Yogmaya, who is Yogmaya? Yogmaya is the younger sister of Lord Krishna. So when Yashoda ji gave birth to Yogmaya, actually the acharyas mention that Yashoda Mai also gave birth to Lord Krishna and then gave birth to Yogmaya. So some Vaishnava acharyas explain that Yogmaya actually is the younger sister of Lord Krishna. So Yogmaya, as soon as Kamsa decides to dash Yogmaya or the baby girl onto the stone slab nearby, Yogmaya slips away from Kamsa's hand. She immediately slips away from Kamsa's hand, and she appears as Durga in the sky. This Durga, the description given in Srimad Bhagavatam is that this Durga Devi had 8 arms, and all of these 8 arms were equipped with different kind of weapons. As you can see in the picture, she held a bow, she had a disc, she had a shield, she had a sword, she had a conch, she had a trident, she had arrows, and so on. So she was quite decorated with lot of uh, ayudha. Ayudha means weapons. Not only weapons, she was decorated with flowers. She was decorated with beautiful garments, ornaments, and so on. And it is described in Srimad Bhagavatam that this Yogamaya was the Anuja Vishnu. Anuja Vishnu means, Anuj means younger brother or younger sister. When you call Anuj, actually it means younger brother. When you call Anuja, that means younger sister. So it is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam that Yogamaya is the Anuja Vishnu. Anuja Vishnu would mean younger sister of Vishnuji, younger sister of Lord Krishna. And as soon as this Yogamaya appears in the sky, Durga Devi appears in the sky, she makes an announcement. She tells Kamsa, "Oh foolish one, there is no use of killing me. huh? Your enemy who will kill you actually has taken birth elsewhere, and you should not kill unnecessarily other children." So with that announcement, Durga Devi actually warns Kamsa that your enemy who will kill you has actually taken birth elsewhere. And by saying so, Durga Devi at once disappears from that place, and Bhagavatam mentions that uh, Durga Devi then appears at different places on earth with different names. Iti prabhashya tam Devi Maya Bhagwati Bhuvi Bahunam Aniketeshu Bahunama Babhuvaha. That's what 13th verse of chapter number 4 mentions about Durga Devi. And Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport various names of Durga Devi and various places where she appears with different names. For example, in Mumbai, in Bombay, she is known as Mumba Devi. In Varanasi, in Banaras, she is known as Annapurna. In Katak, she is known as Bhadrakali. In Ahmedabad, Gujarat, she is known as Bhadra. So like that, Durga Devi at once disappears from that place after warning Kamsa, and Bhagavatam mentions that she appears at different places with different names. Now, Kamsa, after he experienced this instance, he becomes very astonished. And there was a reason for astonishment of Kamsa. First of all, he was astonished that the eighth child of Devaki was not a girl. It was not a boy. Actually, it was a girl. And then he was astonished that from a human being like Devaki, actually Durga Devi has appeared. So he was very astonished because of these two reasons. And Srila Prabhupada mentioned in his purport that those who are of demoniac nature, those who are of materialistic mindset, actually their worshipable deities are Durga Ji and Lord Shiva, because they are always eager for some material benefit and so on. And Durga Devi and Lord Shiva are in charge of these material world on behalf of the Lord, and they actually supply all these material necessities. So demoniac people, materialistic people, asuric people are worshipable of Durga Ji, and that is why he was very astonished that how come Durga Devi actually appeared from a human being Devaki. And then, because he was astonished and he was kind of overwhelmed to see Durga Ji appearing from the womb of Devaki, Mother Devaki, he started to uh, speak very in very humble tone. He becomes very humble, and he starts to plead with Devaki. He starts to plead with Vasudev Ji, and he speaks following words. He says, "Oh, I am so fallen. I am so sinful. I am like a man eater. I'm like a man eater who actually eats one's own children when they are born, newly born children. So I'm like a man eater." Then he says that I am such a person, I am such a merciless person that I have forsaken all of my relatives. I have broken ties with all of my relatives. I also don't know how to respect the Brahmanas. I also don't know where will I go after I leave this body, which loka, which planet I will go when I will leave this body. Like that, he starts to lead to Vasudev Ji and Devaki. He then also mentions that see the fun that even providence also lies. Devam apyanartham bhakti na martya eva kevalam yadvishram भादहम पापः ससुरनी हत वांछी शून। हाय, कभी कभी न केवल मनुष्य झूठ बोलते हैं अपितु विधाता भी झूठ बोलता है। So he was quite astonished that he mentions that even providence lies. And what does he mean that providence lies? If you recall that when Kamsa, there was an Akashwani which mentions that the eighth son of Devaki will kill you. When Kamsa was uh, driving Devaki and Vasudev after they got married, and immediately there was an Akashvani, and Akashvani says that the eighth son of Devaki will kill you. So that was the providence, and that's what Kamsa is hinting here, that even providence lies. Daivam apya nritam bhakti na martya eva kevalam. Anritam, Daivam apya anritam. Anritam means lying. Daivam api anritam. Even providence lies. Like that, he starts to speak to Devaki and Vasudev. And then after this, he starts to speak some philosophy. Now you can see that Kamsa was a demoniac person, but despite being demoniac in nature, he actually knew the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, which is about the immortality of the soul and temporariness of the body. And he starts to speak like this, that please do not lament, please do not be sorrowful. Your sons actually died because of misfortune. I am not the actual reason for the killing of your son, of your children. Actually, they died because of their own misfortune. That is why they have died. And those who are intelligent, those who are wise, they do not lament of such kind of loss. Then he speaks about the philosophy of soul and the body. He says, body is temporary and soul is immortal. He gives one analogy. He says that like in this world we see that there are toys, there are utensils made up of clay, and these toys and utensils, since they are made up of clay, when they are broken, they actually gets once again got consumed in this world itself. They वो पृथ्वी में मिलकर विलुप्त हो जाते हैं. They actually once again get combined with the earth, and they actually get disappeared. Like that, Kamsa was starting to speak philosophy to Vasudev and Devaki. This body is temporary, but soul is immortal. And then he says that everyone actually faces his own misfortune. So I am actually not the reason for the cause of the death of your children. It is only because of the misfortune, it is only because of the bad fortune of your children, they have met their death. So please do not lament. And like that, he brought tears in his eyes and started begging forgiveness from Devaki. Started begging forgiveness from Devaki and Vasudev. Devaki and Vasudev, they were very kind hearted. They were very noble people. They were very gentle. And when they saw Kamsa was pleading with tears in his eyes, they actually felt pitiful. They actually felt very kind hearted towards Kamsa. And Bhagavatam mentions that their anger got vanished. Their anger disappeared. Kamsa immediately frees Devaki and Vasudev, and comes Devaki and Vasudev, their Hare Krishna. Can you please mute yourself? Yeah. So Devaki and Vasudev gave up their anger towards Kamsa, and then Vasudev speaks the following words. He says that, oh dear Kamsa, whatever you are saying about soul, about the misfortune of my children, everything is right. Only people who are of bodily conscious, they only talk in terms of yours and mine's. And these kind of people, actually, they are ignorant because they don't understand who is the supreme cause of all causes. So everything happens by will of providence, and will of providence is actually controlled and directed by the Supreme Lord, who sets up these rules of law of karma and so on. And that is why people face their fate, whatever fate they face in this world. So My dear Kamsa, whatever you say is perfectly right, and we don't worry, we forgive you. There is no anger in our heart towards you. Like that, both Vasudev and Devaki actually uh, forgive Kamsa. Kamsa, after hearing these words from Vasudev and Devaki, he is very pleased. He understands that both Devaki and Vasudev has forgiven me. He is very pleased and he returns back to his palace. After he returns back to his palace, now see how the nature of demoniac people are. Just short while ago, he was pleading forgiveness. He was having tears in his eyes. He was speaking nice philosophy to Devaki and Vasudev. But once he returns back to his palace, he starts to consult. He starts to consult his demoniac ministers. So Kamsa had this policy that he would actually engage in fight with demoniac people, with asuras and so on. He will defeat these demoniac people, but then he will not kill these demoniac people. What he will do is he will take a promise from them that whenever he will need them, he will need their help, uh, he will call them, and these people will agree. Otherwise, Kamsa would kill them. So, like that, his ministers were all these demoniac people. So, after Kamsa returns back to his palace, he calls all these demoniac ministers and he starts consultation with them. Kamsa mentions to all these ministers what has happened and how this baby girl actually slipped away from his hand and appeared in the sky in the form of Durga Devi and made this announcement that the killer of you has taken birth elsewhere, and then she disappears. So uh, when he mentions all this to the ministers now starts to give advice to Kamsa, and you will see that how the advice that the ministers give to Kamsa also has nice philosophy and nice lessons in Srimad Bhagavatam. Even the advice of demoniac people has something philosophical, have something nice to learn. So he mentions to Kamsa that what we will do is that all the children that has taken birth in the kingdom, in the surrounding area, whoever is older than 10 days or more, little more than 10 days, we will kill all of those children. And you don't worry, we will help you in carrying out those activities. And then they starts to mention to Kamsa that, dear Kamsa, why should you worry? All the Devi Devatas, all the demigods are actually very fearful of you. And you should not worry about these kind of demigods. So these demigods, whenever you have actually encountered these demigods and have defeated them, they have always been very fearful. And you, out of your mercy, actually have never killed these people. Whenever you have defeated them, whenever you have actually conquered these demigods, you have actually followed the code of wars, and you have left them alive. You have not killed them. So there is nothing to fear about uh, these kind of demigods. And uh, now you see that these demigods actually he then these ministers actually then mention about Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, and Lord Brahma and Indra. So he said that there is nothing to fear about these demigods. And see, these demigods have taken shelter in different places out of fear of you. So Vishnu, out of fear of you, has started to reside in the hearts of the yogis. Lord Shiva, out of fear of you, he has gone to forest. And Brahmaji, he has engaged in austerities and meditation. And Indra, what to speak of Indra, he actually doesn't have any power. So don't worry, there is nothing to fear about these demigods. But here you can see that how Kamsa, who was of a demoniac nature, who was of a asuric nature, short while ago, only few minutes ago, when he was there with Devaki and Vasudev, he was speaking nice philosophy. He had tears in his eyes. But now, when he is back into the association of his demoniac ministers, he actually completely changes his mind. And this is not something which is first time that has happened with Kamsa. In the story in Krishna Lila, we see this has happened several times. First instance, when it happened when he was riding Devaki, he was driving Devaki and Vasudev after their marriage, and he showed a lot of affection, a lot of love towards his sister, her his sister. But as soon as the Akashvani happened, that the eighth child of Devaki will kill you, O Kamsa. As soon as that Akashvani happens, then Kamsa changes his mind immediately. He imprisons Devaki and Vasudev. So that was one first instance when we can see that he backtracked. uh, and second instance also, uh, when Vasudev actually brought his first son. So Vasudev, uh, in order to save his wife's life, he promised Kamsa that please spare my wife's life, Devaki's life, and whenever there will be a child born, I will personally bring that child for you to do whatever you want to do with that child. So uh, Kamsa actually uh, believed in Vasudev's words, and Vasudev also was true to his word. So as soon as the first child was born, he took that first child to Kamsa, uh, uh, and offered that child to Kamsa. But Kamsa said that no, don't worry, this is the first child. The Akashvani actually mentioned about the eighth child. So don't actually bring this first child. I will only kill the eighth child. So you go back. I will not kill this child. I will kill only the eighth child. But then later on, Narad Muni comes, and Narad Muni mentions to Kamsa that see, there has been some changes going on in the cosmic government. There are demigods who are taking birth on this earthly planet, and there has been a plan to kill all the demoniac people. So that's what Narad Muni mentions. And Kamsa, when he hears these words from Narad Muni, he starts to think that now when the demigods have started to taken birth, who knows how Vishnu will cheat me, how Vishnu will trick me, and he might even appear as the first child or the second child or the third child. And that's where again Kamsa backtracks and changes his mind. So first time he changes his mind when he's riding Vasudev and Devaki. Second time he backtracks when he's when Vasudevji brings the first child for Kamsa to kill. And third time here also we can see that soon after he's pleading forgiveness from Devaki and Vasudev, he once again backtracks and consults his demonic ministers, and he starts to uh, look and listen to their evil advice. So the minister now mentions that demigods actually are very fearful of you. See, Vishnu has taken shelter in the hearts of the yogis. Shiva has gone to the forest. Brahma is actually engaged in dhyan, meditation, and Indra has nothing. Indra has no power. So you should not worry about these demigods, and we should continue with our business. But see, let us also mention to you, let us also caution you that although demigods cannot harm you, demigods cannot kill you, but we should still kill the demigods. We should not neglect them. And they give a very nice analogy. They start to speak something from niti, from strategy. They start to speak something from niti. They say that if a disease is not treated early enough, then later on, if you continue to prolong the disease, that disease actually become incurable. If you continue to prolong, if you enter into old age, when the senses become very weak, then we cannot treat the disease nicely. So don't don't wait for anything. Even then, even if these demigods cannot harm you, you cannot. They are very much fearful of you, and you have been very mercifully being forgiving them when they are asking for forgiveness, when you have defeated them. Still, we should continue to kill these demigods, because if the disease is not treated early, it becomes incurable. So Srila Prabhupada also quotes something more from the Niti Shastra to the same effect. He quotes Chanakya Pandit. He quotes Chanakya Pandit as follows. He says that like if the fire is there, and if a disease is there, and if a debt is there, if an intelligent person do not put up the fire early, cure the disease early, or pay the debt as soon as the debt is arisen, then he may land up into difficulty. So fire, disease, and debt all should be cleared up as soon as possible. Otherwise, they keep on increasing. So like that, these demoniac people, these demoniac ministers also had some nice advice to Kamsa, which is something nice for us also in our life to learn. Like that, these demonic people starts to advise Kamsa. Not only this, but you can also listen to these demoniac people what they tell about Lord Vishnu. They say that Lord Vishnu actually is the foundation of all demigods. Moolam hi Vishnur Devanam yatra dharma sanatana tasya cha brahma go vipra stapo yagya sadakshina. So he's saying, these demoniac ministers are saying, actually this Vishnu is the foundation of all demigods. And like this, we also hear from Srimad Bhagavad Gita that demigods are actually dependent upon the Supreme Lord. Like the same thing, the demoniac people also knew at this time, at that time. And they are saying, Moolam hi Vishnur Devanam Yatra Dharma Sanatana. Moolam. So Vishnu is actually the foundation of all demigods. And then Yatra Dharma Sanatana. Tasya cha Brahma Go Vipra Astapo Yagya Sadakshina. Then he's saying that Vishnu resides where? Vishnu resides at those places where there is dharma, where there is culture, where there is Vedic culture, where there is study of Vedas going on, where there is cows, where there are Brahmanas, where there is an austerity. Austerity means tapa, and where there is sacrifice. Sacrifice means yagya. So all those places where there is dharma, where there is culture, there is Vedic learning, there is cows, there is Brahmanas, there is sacrifice, there is austerities, and so on. Vishnu resides in all those places. So you can see that although these people are demoniac in nature, but they understood the scriptures to some extent at least. And they are clear, very clear in saying that Vishnu is the foundation of all demigods. And wherever there is dharma, culture, Vedas, cows, Brahmanas, austerity, sacrifice, that's where actually Lord Vishnu resides. So the dear devotees, we now know from these demoniac people how to bring Lord Vishnu in our lives. If we follow dharma, if we follow culture and all these things, we can very much welcome Lord Vishnu in our lives. And then they starts to mention that how to kill Vishnu. If we want to kill Lord Vishnu, actually we should kill this Vedic culture. Because wherever there is Vedic culture, there only Lord Vishnu is residing. And they speak some two verses, verse number 41 and verse number 42 of this chapter, where they speak in detail about how to kill Lord Vishnu and what is actually Vedic culture means. So these are the verses. This is the verse number 41. In verse number 41, what they are saying is, Vipragavascha Vedascha Tapaha Satyam Dama Shamah Shraddha Daya Titiksha Cha Kratavascha Haristanu. He's saying, these demonic people are saying, Vipra Gavascha Vedascha. Vipra means the Brahmanas. Gavas means the cows. And Vedas means Vedic knowledge or Vedic culture. Tapaha Satyam Dama Shama. Tapaha means austerity, tapasya. Like for example, you might be observing Ekadashi fast, or you might be observing fast on Janmashtami. So that is called austerity. That is called tapaha. Satyam is truthfulness. Dama means control of the mind and the senses. Dama, Shama, control of the mind, control of the senses. Shraddha, Daya, Titiksha, Cha. Shraddha means faith. Daya means mercy. And Titiksha means tolerance. Shraddha, Daya, Titiksha, Cha. Kratavascha, Harestanu. Harestanu means parts of the body of Lord Vishnu. And then he says, Kratavas means sacrifice. So he's saying that Brahmanas, cows, Vedic knowledge, austerity, truthfulness, control of mind and senses, faith, mercy, tolerance, and sacrifice. These are all different parts of bodies of Lord Vishnu. So how to kill Lord Vishnu? How to destroy the body of Lord Vishnu? If you destroy all these limbs of Lord Vishnu's body, Brahmanas, the cows, the Vedic knowledge, and so on, actually you will be destroying Lord Vishnu. So these are the paraphernalia of a godly civilization. So if you want to make your life, dear devotees, godly, then these are the elements of Vedic culture. These are the elements. If you try to include them in your lives, then you can include Vedic culture in your life. And not only Vedic culture, actually you will include Lord Vishnu in your life. So Brahmanas, cows, Vedic knowledge, austerity, truthfulness, control of the mind and the senses, faith, mercy, tolerance, and sacrifice. So even the demoniac people knew where Lord Vishnu resides and in those times. So this is verse number 41, and you can see how even from demoniac people we can learn some philosophy, learn some nice things in Srimad Bhagavatam. Then in the 42nd verse, these people start to mention something more. He start to say how to kill Lord Vishnu. So in the previous verse, they mention what are the limbs of Lord Vishnu. And then they mention about how to kill Lord Vishnu. Here they are saying in 42nd one, Sahi Sarvasura Dhyaksho Yasura Dvida Kuhashayah Tanmula Devatah Sarva Se Ishvara Sachaturmukha Ayam Ve Tad Vadhopayo Yadrishinam Vihimsinam. So Sahi Sarva Suradhyaksho. Sahi means he is only. Sarva. Sarva means all. Sura. Sura means the devatas. So we have two things, Sura and Asura. Asura who are against the Lord, Sura who are in the favor of the Lord. Sura Adhyaksho. Adhyaksho means the Lord. So Lord Vishnu is the Adhyaksha. Lord Vishnu is the leader of all the demigods, all the Suras. He Asura Dvid Guhashaya. He Asura Dvid. Asura Dvid means enemies of the Asuras. And he is the enemies of the Asuras. He is the supreme Devata, and he is the enemies of the Asura. And he is Guhashaya. Guhashaya means he actually situated in everyone's heart as Paramatma, and he knows everyone's heart. So Sahi Sarva Sura Dhyaksho, he Asura Dvid Guhashaya. Then Tanmula Devata Sarva Sa Ishvara Sa Chaturmukha. Tanmula Devata Sarva. He is actually the root cause of all the Devatas. And Devatas does not have their independent existence. He is actually the Mula. He is actually the root of all the Devatas. Sa Ishvara Sa Chaturmukha. So Sa Ishvara means Sa Ishvara here is referring to Lord Shiva. And Sa Chaturmukha. Chaturmukha is referring to Lord Brahma. So including Lord Shiva and including Lord Brahma, actually Lord Vishnu is Tanmula Devata Sarva. He is the all the demigods, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, exist under his protection. Then Ayam Vai Tad Vadhopayo. Ayam Vai Tad Vadha. Vadha means killing. Upayo means what is the plan? What is the trick? Ayam Vai Tad Vadhopayo Yad Rishinam Vihimsinam. So in order to kill Lord Vishnu, what is the upaya? What is the trick? Yad Rishinam Bhimsinam. Bhimsinam means killing. Bhimsinam to subdue, to vanish, to kindly to completely remove these people. So which are these people? Rishinam. Rishinam means the saintly people like the Vaishnavas. To persecute the Vaishnavas, therefore, is the only way to kill Vishnu. So the plan was that if we kind of give austerities, give atrocities to the Vishnu, to the Vaishnavas, to the rishis, to the saintly people, and that is the only way to kill Vishnu. So if you want to kill Vishnu, kill the Vedic culture, kill the Vaishnavas, bring atrocities to the life of Vaishnavas, bring atrocities to the life of the saintly people. So like that, you can see how these demoniac people, they were speaking the right philosophy, but for the wrong reason. They understood the philosophy that who is the leader of the demigods, who is the leader of demigods, including Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu. But how do we kill this person? We kill this person by completely vanishing this Vedic culture which is existing. So this kind of advice the demoniac ministers were giving to Kamsa, but intelligent people can even pick nice lessons, nice things from these demoniac advice, which actually, if you see, speaks a lot of philosophy, lot of scriptural knowledge is spoken in their advice. Now, Kamsa agrees and gives permission to all these demoniac people. He agrees to the advice of all his ministers, and he permits the atrocities to the saintly. And these demons started to bring these atrocities to the saintly people. So they started to uh, create havoc in the lives of these all these saintly people. Then Shukdev Goswami, who is actually narrating all this story to Parikshit Maharaj in Srimad Bhagavatam, then Shukdev Goswami sums up this chapter, sums up this adhyay uh, by mentioning this very nice verse. And in this verse, verse number 46, Shukdev Goswami is now actually talking about what is the result of giving atrocities to the saintly people. And that is mentioned in this verse, 46th verse, last verse of chapter number 4 of canto number 10. So Shukdev Goswami mentions, Ayuhu Shriyam Yasho Dharmam Lokan Ashisha Evacha Hanti Shreyamsi Sarvani Pumso Mahat Atikramaha. So Shukdev Goswami mentions that if a person has ayu, if a person has longevity, has a uh, uh, dirghayu, has a very long life, Shriyam means beauty. If the person has a very long life, he has beauty. Yash means fame. Dharmam, he is very religious. And Lokan means blessings and promotion to the higher planets. Blessings is Ashish. So he is actually destined to go to higher planets. And he has lot of Ashish, lot of blessings of the other people. So Ayu Shriyam Yasho Dharmam Lokan Ashisha Evacha. Then Hanti Shreyamsi Sarvani. All these benedictions, all these benefits, all these nice things that a person may have, Hanti means they are destroyed. Hanti Shreyamsi Sarvani. All these Shreyas, all these benedictions will be destroyed. Pumso Mahad Atikramaha. Mahad, Pumso Mahad. Mahad means great souls. Mahad means great. Pumso means human being or people. So great people, Mahat Pumso Mahat, great people. If we do Atikram means if we persecute these people, if we give atrocities to such people, then even if the person have Ayu, Shriyam, Yasho, Dharmam, Lokan, Ashish, Evacha, Hanti Shreyam Si Sarvani. Everything, every Shreyas, every benediction will be destroyed. So that is the uh, nice verse that Shukdev Goswami speaks at the end of this chapter. And by speaking this verse, Shukdev Goswami is actually telling us that one should never offend great people. One should never offend saintly people, Vaishnavas, Guru Janas, and so on. So if we offend these people, then if we have long life, if we have beauty, fame, and so on, many benedictions in our life, all those benedictions will be depleted, will be declined. So one should be very careful when we are dealing with great people, saintly people, Mahatmas, and so on. So like this, we end the chapter number 4 of the canto number 10. Uh, 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 all these 46 verses, I just briefly summarized how there are some very nice lessons in the advice that these demonic ministers is offering to Kamsa, and then Shukdev Goswami sums it up very beautifully by giving this advice that what is the secret of maintaining long life, beauty, and all other benedictions in our life. So now we will start the next chapter, which is chapter number 5. And in this chapter number 5, we hear about the meeting between Nand Maharaj and Vasudev ji. So Nand Maharaj meets Vasudev ji uh, uh, when Nand Maharaj actually goes to Mathura to pay taxes to Kamsa. So Nand Maharaj was in the kingdom of Kamsa, and he was a Vaishya. He was a kind of a businessman who had lot of cows, lot of farming land, and so on. And whatever earnings he will make from those farming and cows, he will pay certain amount as a tax to his king, who was Kamsa. So when Nand Maharaj goes to Mathura, that's where Vasudev ji is and Devaki also residing. Vasudev ji and Devaki has recently been freed from imprisonment by Kamsa. So when Vasudev ji come to know that Nanda Maharaj is visiting Mathura, Vasudev ji actually immediately makes a plan, makes an arrangement to meet Nanda Maharaj. And in this uh, uh, in this chapter, primarily there is a description of the meeting between Nanda Maharaj and Vasudev. But before that, the chapter describes in great detail that before Nanda Maharaj goes to Mathura, there is celebration in Gokul. And why there is celebration? Because Lord Krishna has taken birth as son of Nanda Maharaj. So there is a description of festivities. There is a description of a lot of enjoyment, lot of celebration in Gokul, and we will discuss what are the different festivities are there uh, in the village of Nanda Maharaj. So the chapter starts with that Nanda Maharaj is now very happy. He is very jubilant. Hmm. Nanda Stva Atmaja Utpanne Jata Ahalado Mahamana. Jata Ahalado. Ahalad means he's extremely happy. He's in overwhelmed with jubilation. And the reason for jubilation is that he has got a son now. His wife Yashoda ji actually has given birth to a son. So Nanda Maharaj was overwhelmed with jubilation, and in that jubilation, he is now inviting Brahmanas. He's inviting Brahmanas to recite auspicious mantras. He's inviting Brahmanas to arrange for Vedic birth ceremony. So you would know that in the Vedic culture, whenever there is a birth of a child, not even birth of a child, even when the husband and wife actually conceive the child, the sanskaras start. So when the husband and wife are beginning to conceive the child, there is a sanskar called as Garbhadhan sanskar. And like that, there are a series of sanskar throughout the life of a person. And when the person is born, physically born in this world, then also there are Vedic ceremonies, Vedic birth ceremonies. So Nanda Maharaj was very happy. He is inviting Brahmanas who are chanting auspicious mantras, and these Brahmanas are arranging for a Vedic birth ceremony for uh, auspicious beginning of the life of the son of Nanda Maharaj. Nanda Maharaj, since he is very happy at this moment, he is giving a lot of charity to the Brahmanas. He's opened his heart, and out of his magnanimity, he is now offering a lot of charity to the Brahmanas. And these charities are described in Srimad Bhagavatam. It is mentioned that Nanda Maharaj gave 20 lakh cows, and each of these cows were decorated with clothes, and on these clothes there were jewels. So Nanda Maharaj was giving profusely, magnanimously, a lot of charity to these Brahmanas. And if besides these 20 lakh cows, clothes, and jewels, he also gave in charity 7 hills, 7 big heaps which were like hills of grains. So all these were given in charity to the various different Brahmanas by Nanda Maharaj. Nanda Maharaj gave a lot of charity, and when Lord Krishna took birth to Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, actually they were of uh, a very advanced age. They were not very young; they were of very advanced age. So Nanda Maharaj also took this as an opportunity to do a lot of purificatory processes, a lot of yagyas, sanskaras, and so on. And at this time, he also arranged for worship of demigods, worship of his ancestors, and so on. So the traditional purificatory processes that Nanda Maharaj started are also mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. In fourth verse, some of these purificatory processes are given hint, and Shukdev Goswami is mentioning about some of these purificatory processes. He's mentioning Kalena Snana Shauchabhyam Sanskarais Tapassejjaya Shudhadyanti Dane Santushtya Dravyanya Atma Vidyaya. So there are number of different purification uh, or different ways purification can happen. It is mentioned in this verse, beautiful verse. Kalena Snana Shauchabhyam. Here it is mentioned Kalena. Kalena means time. Time purifies land and other material possessions. So if you see, time destroys everything, even impurities it destroys. So if a piece of land is there and there is something which is something impurity, something unwanted is there, time actually uh, by its nature actually destroys even that impurity also. So it is mentioned here Kalena. Kalena means time. Time purifies land and other material possessions. Then Snana Shauchabhyam. Snana Shauchabhyam, bathing, it is referring to bathing. Bathing purifies the body. Samskaras tapasya. Samskar. Samskar means purificatory ceremonies. Like Nanda Maharaj is organizing this purificatory ceremony, the birth ceremony, uh, uh, to have a beginning, to have an auspicious beginning for his son, Lord Krishna. So it says, purificatory ceremonies purifies birth. So purificatory ceremonies are there at a different lifetime of a person, and these are actually meant for purification of our heart. Then tapas ijya. Ijya means worship. Tapas means austerity. Austerity purifies the senses. So whenever we do some tapasya, for example, fasting and so on, so these kind of austerities purifies the senses. They develop a sense of they increase our willpower. They increase our ability to control our senses and so on. So it is mentioned that tapa, austerity purifies the senses. Sa ijjaya. Ijjaya means worship, and dana. Worship and dana shuddhayanti. Worship and charity offered to the Brahmanas purifies material possessions. So whenever we acquire wealth, whenever we acquire some money, some wealth, then not all this wealth, not all this money actually come by purified means. So some part of our wealth is always impure, but this impurity from our wealth we can purify when we offer this wealth as charity, or when we use this wealth as a means of worship to the brahmanas, to the deities and so on. This actually purifies our material possessions. Santushtya. Santushtya means satisfaction. So satisfaction is not only a state of mind, but satisfaction is also a decision that a person takes in his life. When a person acquires material possessions, he may get this tendency to acquire more and more and more out of greed. But at a certain point of time, a person may have to decide that now I have to be satisfied. Now it is not that I will not gain spiritual benefits by acquiring this wealth unlimitedly. I should actually devote my time for self realization, for God realization. So at this moment of time, when a person thinks like that, he actually develops santosh. He actually develops santushti, and santushti purifies the mind. So santushtya, santushti purifies the mind. Like that, drav, dravyani atma vidya. Santushtya dravyani atma vidya. And the knowledge for self-realization, atma vidyaya. Knowledge of self-realization actually purifies the soul. So the knowledge of soul, knowledge that the body is temporary, soul is permanent. We have a relationship with the Supreme Lord, and our main objective of this life is actually to revive that relationship and actually go back to Him, back to Godhead ultimately. This kind of knowledge, this kind of literature like Srimad Bhagavatam, literature like Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Valmiki Ramayana, and so on. All these nice Vedic literature where we can see a lot of knowledge related to self-realization, actually it purifies the soul. That knowledge purifies the soul. So this verse number 4 in chapter number 5 mentions about traditional purificatory processes, and there are several of them, starting from time, bathing, purificatory ceremonies, austerity, worship and charity, satisfaction, and knowledge for self-realization. So Prabhupada ji has given what each of these purificatory process purifies, that he has mentioned in translation of this verse. Then verse number 5 to 18 in this chapter is giving description, a vivid description about the festivities that are going on in the household of Nanda Maharaj, in the village of Nanda Maharaj. And the description is something like this: that the Brahmanas are chanting Vedic mantras, and uh, the singers are there who are singing very nice songs with the help of musical instruments, and there is festivity, the mood of festivity all around. The whole house of Nanda Maharaj has been decorated with festoons, with decorated with flags, and there are different gates, and each of these gates are actually made up of garlands of very beautiful flowers. Each of these gates are decorated with mango leaves. There are clothes, beautiful clothes, colorful clothes, and with these leaves, flowers, garlands, clothes, there are different torans. Toran means gates. Uh, so they have decorated the house of Nanda Maharaj with these kind of paraphernalia. They not only decorated the house with these kind of things, but each and every nook and corner of the house has been cleaned, has been really washed with water and nicely cleaned. So like that, we should actually also do in our house in Janmashtami day. Should clean the house, should decorate it at least with flowers, leaves, and so on. If not the full house, at least we should decorate our altar, our place of worship, or at least the room where we worship. We should do something like this to welcome the Lord. Then it further goes on mentioning about that the cows, the bulls, the calves were decorated very nicely. All the cows, the bulls, the calves, on their bodies, they were smeared some oil, they were smeared with some haldi, turmeric, and so on. And like that, they were given massage on their bodies. Their foreheads were decorated with the moorpunk, the feather of the peacock feather. They were decorated with garlands, and they were also decorated with a lot of clothes, ornaments, and so on. So all these cows, bulls, and calves were decorated very nicely. Then Shukdev Goswami continues to explain to King Parikshit that not only cows, bulls were decorated, even the gopas and the gopis, they also dressed very nice clothes in themselves, in very nice clothes. They were uh, they were sporting a lot of valuable, lot of precious ornaments. They had nice colorful turbans, and like that, with lot of nice gifts in their hand, nicely dressed with nice gifts in their hands, they went to the home of Nanda Maharaj, offering these nice gifts to Nanda Maharaj. The gopis were also not left behind. The gopis were extremely joyful to hear that Mother Yashoda has actually now given birth to a son. And then they also, with lot of nice clothes, a lot of nice ornaments, with kajal in their eyes, they decorated their bodies. And like this, having such a festive mood in Gokul, everything was very in a very celebrating mood, in a very festival kind of mood. These gopis with decorated nice clothes and ornaments, they were now profusely blessing the newly born. They were giving a lot of blessings to the newly born, and uh, they were actually very happy at this moment. Their uh, ears were decorated with a lot of nice earrings. Their hands were decorated with nice bangles. They had colorful clothes. Their hair were decorated with nice flowers. And when they were walking on the streets of Gokul, these flowers are actually were falling from the hair, like giving an impression that there has been a rain of flowers in Gokul. Like that, they were looking very, very beautiful, and the whole atmosphere was full of celebration, full of joy, and full of festival. Also, at this moment, there were not lot of musical instruments being played, and in order to welcome uh, the Lord of the universe, the Lord of the infinite universe, lot of musical instruments were being played at this time. And one nice thing was also going on. All these gopas, gopis, and the residents of Gokul, in a very happy mood, they were playing Holi with curd, kheer, and butter. They were throwing curd, they were throwing milk products like kheer and butter in happiness on each other. So that is something, a very happy way of celebrating the appearance of the Lord. I'm not sure whether you would like to do this when you start celebrating Janmashtami in your house, but that is what Bhagavatam mentions, how the residents of Gokul were throwing butter, ghee, milk each and on each other's bodies, and they were actually massaging each other's bodies with these kind of products, like we do on Holi, something like that. And then uh, the festivities also mention about Nanda Maharaj giving lots and lots of charity, uh, giving lot of clothes, ornaments, cows, and he was also inviting a lot of people, and according to their educational qualifications, he was giving charity to all of these people, and he was satisfying all of these people who were coming according to their reputation, according to their knowledge, according to their status in the society. Like that, he was giving lot of charity, Nanda Maharaj. There's also a description of what Mother Rohini, mother of Lord Balram, was doing at this moment of time. So Mother Rohini also was considering herself very much fortunate, and uh, after hearing this news, after hearing this celebration about uh, appearance of Lord Krishna, he was also uh, celebrating by decorating herself with nice clothes, and she also was busy at this moment of time in receiving guests, and he was attending to these guests and so on. And then Bhagavatam mentions that although the household of Nanda Maharaj is already very opulent, but at this moment of time when Lord Krishna appeared in his house, the whole house appeared as if Lakshmi Devi personally has appeared in the house of Nanda Maharaj. So, like that, there's a description of great festivities being organized in the house of Nanda Maharaj, which kind of builds the festival mood of the Janmashtami that we are about to celebrate in a couple of days. Then there is a mention in the 19th verse of this chapter that how then Nanda Maharaj leaves for Mathura because he wanted to pay some taxes to Kamsa. Gopan Gokul Rakshayam Nirupya Mathuram Gataha Nandaha Kansasya Varshikyam Karam Datum Kurudvaha. Kansayasya Varshikyam Karam Datum Kurudvaha. The annual taxes, Varshikyam. Paying Varshik taxes means annual taxes to Mathura, to Kamsa. Now there was an opportunity because Nanda Maharaj has now left for Mathura for paying taxes. There is an opportunity now to meet Nanda Maharaj and Vasudev. So Nanda Maharaj and Vasudev were actually step brothers. Step brothers would mean that the father of Nanda Maharaj and Vasudev, his name was Shurasena, and Shurasena had two wives. One wife was a Kshatriya and another wife was a Vaishya. So the Vaishya wife gave birth to Nanda Maharaj, and that is why Nanda Maharaj was Vaishya, following the Vaishya way of life. And the Kshatriya wife gave birth to Vasudev ji, and that is why Vasudev ji is following the Kshatriya code of conduct. So among Nanda Maharaj and Vasudev ji, Nanda Maharaj was elderly, and when this news of Nanda Maharaj coming to Mathura came, Vasudev ji immediately took this opportunity to meet Nanda Maharaj. So Vasudev and Nanda Maharaj, since they were brothers, they were they loved each other very much. And as Vasudev ji meets Nanda Maharaj, Vasudev ji offers his pranam to Nanda Maharaj. So you can see some Vaishnava tradition, also Vaishnava etiquette also being mentioned here in Srimad Bhagavatam. And Nanda Maharaj actually embraces Vasudev ji. So Vasudev ji offers his pranam to Nanda ji, and Nanda ji actually embraces. So like that, you can see how a person who is of senior position and how a person who is of a junior position actually interact with each other. So like that, it is mentioned in Bhagavatam how this dealing happened. Then Vasudev ji intelligently inquires about what is going on in Gokul. Actually, Vasudev ji wanted to inquire about what is happening to his two sons, Balaram and Krishna. But he doesn't directly ask about Balaram and Krishna. He indirectly asks, and how are your children? And how are your children? Praja. He says, Pujita Sukhamasina Prashtwana Mayanamrata Prasaktidhi Swa Atmajayo Aridamaha Vishampate. Hey Maharaj Parikshit, hey Nand Maharaj. Maharaj Parikshit is mentioned here because Shukdev Goswami is narrating this story to Parikshit ji. Then Shukdev Goswami is saying that Nanda Maharaj, like that, welcoming his younger brother Vasudev ji, he welcomes him very nicely. He offers him a seat where he sits with peace, and then Vasudev ji very intelligently inquires about his two sons indirectly. Out of his lot of affection for both the sons, he inquires about him. And he then congratulates, Vasudev ji congratulates Nanda ji that at such an elderly age, at such an advanced stage of your life, where you did not have any child, now you are very fortunate that now you have a son, and you were already kind of hopeless that you will not beget a son, but now you have a son, so you are very fortunate. And and we should celebrate that. And then uh, he appreciates the good fortune of meeting Nanda Maharaj. He says that I am in so much of love with you. uh, I so appreciate this opportunity that I have been able to meet you. So you can imagine that Vasudev ji was present by Kamsa for so many years. So although they were brothers, although they were uh, although they loved each other very much, there were a lot of affection among both of them, but still they were not able to meet. So Nanda Maharaj and Vasudev ji here now kind of discussing, and specifically Vasudev ji is mentioning that I am so fortunate that I am able to meet you. And in this way, there is a verse mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam where Vasudev ji mentions something like this to Nanda Maharaj, and this is something very nice to learn. He gives this occasion that they are meeting with each other. He compares this relationship with like two twigs or two sticks, wooden sticks, floating in the river. If we bring couple of sticks, wooden sticks together, uh, and we float them in the river, then what happens? Because of the force of water, because of the force of the waves, these sticks separate in due course of time. As the river flows and as the current flows, after a short distance, the sticks separate. One stick goes another way, another stick goes another way. Like that, Nanda Maharaj and Vasudev ji are discussing this, and Vasudev ji is mentioning something like this, uh, that I am so fortunate to meet you, because even if a person is having lot of close relationship, lot of love, lot of affection with his relative, but it is not possible all the time that they can live together. And it is only happening because of karma. Each of the individual bring their own karma in this world, and because of the force, because of the dint of these karma, these karmic baggage we bring, we, although we love each other so much, but because of this karmic baggage, we cannot live together. And this is the verse he speaks, the 25th verse he speaks here. He says, Naikatra priya samvasaha suhradam chitra karmanam oghena vyuhamananam plavanam srotaso yatha. Naikatra priya samvasaha. Na na ekatra. Na ekatra means na means no, ek means one. Na ekatra priya samvasaha. Priya means to people whom we love so much. Samvasaha. Samvasaha means living together. Vas means living, and samvas means living together. Like we have this word kirtan and sankirtan. So kirtan means singing the glories of the Lord, and sankirtan means singing the glories of the Lord together. So na ekrata priya samvasaha. So we, although we love each other so much, but we cannot live at one place together. Suhridam chitra karmanam, and live together with whom? Our suhridams. Suhridam means people whom we love so much. Hrida means heart. Su means dear, very dear. So people who are very dear to our heart, we cannot live with them together. And why this happens? Chitra karmanam. Chitra karmanam. Chitra karmanam means because of this karmic baggage one brings. Oghena vyuhamananam. Oghena vyuhamananam. Oghena means by force. Vyuhamananam. Vyuha means if you bring a bundle of stick together by force you collect the sticks together and you put them in the flowing stream of water. Plavanam srotaso yatha. Plavanam srotaso yatha. Plavanam means these things which actually float in the river and so on. So if you bring forcefully these sticks together and you flow them in the river, then srotaso yatha. Srotaso means lahar, the waves of the water. So they will not stay together. Now you can see here that both Nanda Maharaj and Vasudev ji were father of Lord Krishna, father of Supreme Lord Krishna. And even the fathers of Supreme Lord Krishna cannot live together in this world, although they love each other so much. So what to speak of common people like you and us, you and me. So we also many times, although we love our many relatives, friends, and so on, we are not able to live with them together for a long life. And that is what Vasudev ji is mentioning to Nanda Maharaj here on this occasion when they are meeting together. They love each other so much, and Vasudev ji speaks this verse to actually reveal the reality of this life, that although we live each other, we cannot we love so much with each other, but we cannot live together. And that he gives this analogy of a bundle of sticks flowing in the river of water, which separate after flowing after some distance. So on a very nice verse, 25th verse. And then Vasudev ji starts to ask about the welfare of cows to Nanda Maharaj. Say, the place where you are living, is it a nice place? Are you able to get nice things? Are you able to get water? Are you able to get nice plants? Are you able to get nice grass there? Because if there is a nice grass, then the cows can live peacefully there. So all these things he starts to inquire from Nandaji. And then he also inquires in particular about Balaramji, that is Balaram, your elder child is okay? Is he having is he living nicely with his mother Yashoda and so on, mother Rohini and so on. And then the discussion continues further. Now the conversation moves to Nandaji. So far Vasudev ji was speaking to Nanda Maharaj, asking about his well-being and so on. Now Nanda Maharaj, he speaks and he starts to inquire about the well-being of Vasudev ji. Nanda Maharaj says, and he expresses a lot of grief on the loss of all the sons of Vasudev ji. And he mentions that you have lost so many sons, and even the last youngest child, who was a daughter, you also even lost that daughter. She actually went to Swarga. So he might have heard about how the daughter actually went into the sky and disappeared like that. So Nanda Maharaj expresses grief on the loss of all the sons, and he also make a special mention about the youngest daughter that actually went to the Swarga. Then he consoles Vasudevji, because Vasudevji has uh, uh, faced such a grief. Then he consoles Vasudevji. He says, see, the destiny is very, very powerful. Nunam hidrishtanishtoyam drashta paramo janaha adrashtamatman atastatvam yo veda na samuyati. He's saying that everyone's destiny is fixed. Everyone's destiny is fixed. Whatever happens in one's life is because of the destiny, because of the past karma one brings. And sometimes the person is actually really a puppet in the hands of these destiny. And a person who knows this kind of game of life, this kind of working, how the life works, how the world works, he never becomes lamented. He never actually becomes illusioned. Adrashtam atmana sattvam yona vedasa muhyati. So one who knows this atma tattva, one who knows this uh, uh, confidential knowledge about the workings of this world, yo vedasana muhyati. He doesn't become bewildered. He doesn't become illusioned. So like that, Nanda Maharaj is consoling Vasudevji, and Vasudevji now he speaks this verse, and where he says that now, Nanda, you have already paid the taxes, the annual taxes to the Raja, to the king. Now, what I am trying to say to you, please listen very carefully. So, you should immediately return back to Gokul, because I have heard that in Gokul there could be some disturbance. So, Vasudev ji was a Kshatriya, and he understood the mind of another Kshatriya, which is Kamsa. So, Kamsa was a demoniac person. So he understood the mind of Kamsa, and since Kamsa would know that the child has taken birth elsewhere, he would certainly do something to create some disturbance. That is how Vasudevji wants Nanda Maharaj that he should return back to Gokul immediately, because there could be some disturbance in Gokul, and he should go back immediately and actually be careful, be cautious. And after hearing this, Nanda Maharaj leaves to Gokul. So that ends the fifth chapter of canto number 10. But now you can see, dear devotees, how Srimad Bhagavatam has narrated this pastime of atrocities of Kamsa and the meeting between Nanda and Vasudev. And while narrating this pastime, you can see in the flow of Bhagavatam, in the flow of this storytelling, we have such nectarian uh, learnings, nectarian instructions. Even if a person who is a speaker of a demoniac nature, even the instruction of the demoniac nature person also has something for us to inspire, also has something to learn from all these instructions. So I hope this telling of this Srimad Bhagavatam chapter number 4 and 5 would have increased your thirst, increase your desire to know more about Krishna Lila, and you may personally want to read all these Krishna Lila from Srimad Bhagavatam itself. And with that inspiration, with that little uh, discussion, I would like to conclude this class. So all glories to Srimad Bhagavatam, all glories to Sri Janmashtami Mahamahotsava, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. So thank you very much for all your patience, all your hearing. I am really very grateful to you. Thank you very much. Also like to announce program in next few days. Uh, these are the programs, these are the classes which are different from the regular classes we are having. So tomorrow on Sunday, I will be holding one class specifically for the Hindi group uh, on Janmashtami. And there I will be talking about the first three cantos of first three chapters of canto number 10, where the direct description of the birth of Lord Krishna is given. So canto number 1, chapter number 1, 2 and 3. I had organized this class for the English group last year, but today, this time I will do it in Hindi. The slides will also be in Hindi, and that will happen on tomorrow. Devotees from English class, if they're interested, they can also join. I will post that invitation in the WhatsApp group. And apart from that, I also have this desire to speak about Srila Prabhupada. And why so? Because Prabhupada appearance day, Prabhupada's birthday is directly one day after Janmashtami. So Janmashtami is on Monday and Prabhupada appearance day is on Tuesday. So I will be organizing one class, Prabhupada Katha in Hindi, which is about the biography of Prabhupada, and that will be on Wednesday, one day after Prabhupada appearance day, on our regular day when we organize our Hindi classes. So 1st of September, Wednesday, there will be Prabhupada Katha. The timing for Prabhupada Katha will be 5 p.m. But tomorrow's class, Janmashtami class, we will be doing it at 5:30 p.m. So at the regular time of our English class. So with that, I'm so grateful that you took time to join this discussion, and I hope it would have been a purifying session. It would have been an inspiring session. It would have created some kind of a mood environment of welcoming the Lord 2 days after when the Janmashtami festival begins. So thank you very much. If there are any questions, any comments, any feedbacks, you are most welcome to kindly offer those. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Very interesting talk, and we really feel connected hearing all this. And,
thank you.
By way of question, I would like to know something more about Narada, because he continues to appear on the scene quite frequently and taking things by storm. So what exactly was his status? Was he a demigod or some incarnation of the Lord himself? How was he able to do all that, what he was doing? So something more about Narada and his place in the whole arrangement.
Yeah, so Narada is a very, very dear devotee of the Lord. He is known as Devarshi. So the demigods, Devarshi means like you would see rishis and munis and so on. Right. So in the abode of the demigods, like the devatas, he is actually considered as a Devarshi, Devarshi Narad. And if you read Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 10, where Lord Krishna is actually describing his opulences, here he says, "In among the Devarshis, I am Narada." So Narada, he was the topmost Devarshi. He was the topmost Devarshi, and he's a very, very dear devotee of the Lord.
He could do more than what these demigods are doing.
Yeah, and a story of Narad Muni is actually described in Srimad Bhagavatam. If you read Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, Narad Muni describes his story. Because what happens is that Vyasdev was feeling very, very remorse. He was feeling very, very dejected, very, very kind of depressed. And he was thinking to himself that he has done so much of literature work. He has given so much of literature, Mahabharata and all these Vedas, Vedantas, and so on. But he's not feeling satisfied. And then at that moment of time, his guru, his spiritual master, Narad Muni, comes there. And there's a discussion, there is a separate whole chapter on the discussion between Narad Muni and Vyasdev. And then Narad Muni narrates his life story to Vyasdev in Srimad Bhagavatam. And he mentions that how by the association of devotees, he actually got a lot of pious credits in his life. And he actually got this status of Narad Muni and Devarshi and so on. So there is a story of Narad Muni described in detail in Srimad Bhagavatam. Very nice, very inspiring story, where Narad Muni tells that how he became a devotee. How he became a devotee. So Narad Muni has a very, very special position in Vedic literature. He's a very, very dear devotee of the Lord. And he is always willing to work to execute the plans of the Lord and so on. And that's why he has this special ability that he can go anywhere, everywhere. He's also known as a transcendental spaceman. If you read Prabhupada books, Prabhupada has described
I
Narad
see.
Muni as
Yes.
transcendental spaceman. He has the ability, or he has
Right.
this capability to travel among different realms, lokas, planets, and so on, like that.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
What is the significance of the curse by Kansa for killing the children of Vasudeva and Devaki? What is the background behind that?
Yeah, so there is a background story also about these 6 children that are killed. I don't remember or recall the detailed story right now, but as the Bhagavatam mentions that these people or these children actually are kind of reaping their karma of the previous lives. So that is true. And there is a story, there is a dedicated story where these 6 children had something in their previous lives. And when they appear from the womb of Mother Devaki and get killed by Kamsa, they were actually destroying all those karmas of their previous life. So, but I don't recall that story in detail. Maybe I have to refer to some of my senior devotees or senior uh, senior people to really recall what story is that, but that is the background. And
Why were they imprisoned? Devaki and Vasudeva, why they were imprisoned? Because he wanted to catch them as the Krishna would come.
yeah, that's what. So you will learn that story tomorrow when we speak about chapter number 1 till 3. So we will speak that in detail tomorrow. And it is mentioned that Devaki and Vasudev also had given birth to the Lord in their previous lives. So in their previous lives, they had given this birth to Vaman Dev, and I think they also gave birth to Prishni. They were Prishni Garbha, and yeah, some detail is mentioned there. Maybe I'll narrate in detail tomorrow. Yeah, I have to check in that. I have to check in the chapter. So Sutapa, yes, I think Sutapa and Vaman. So in the previous lives, Mother Devaki and Vasudev were Kashyap and Aditi, and Sutapa and Prishni Garbha, where they also gave birth to another incarnation of Lord Vamandev and one more. So from this story, you can understand that becoming father and mother of the Lord is not easy. And Lord do not choose ordinary people or ordinary soul for that role. So in order to tolerate the pain of killing of 6 sons is not a simple thing. So Mother Devaki and Vasudev are no ordinary devotees of the Lord. They are very special devotees of the Lord. And this is the way Lord actually organizes his Leela to charm the heart of his devotees on this earthly planet. Maybe that's what I would say to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions?
Prabhuji, you mentioned time purifies land and material possessions. How does that happen?
Time, the nature of time is to destroy. So nature of time is to destroy means it destroys impurities also. For example, if something is impure or creating smell, after some time when it is destroyed, the smell goes away. Like that, you can say that time actually purifies these things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank
Hare
you
Krishna,
for beautiful
Mataji.
katha.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji.
For preparing us for the Janmashtami.
Yeah, more preparations tomorrow also if you like to join.
Yes,
yeah.
definitely I'll join Prabhu.
Sure.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes, I'll join it.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you,
Prabhu.
Prabhu.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you very
Hare
much. Then we
Krishna.
will close this session and look
Thank you,
forward to
Prabhu.
meet you tomorrow also for the Hindi session. All are welcome. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Prabhuji.
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I did raise hand, but I didn't get a chance.
Sorry,
So
Prabhu,
there
I
is
did
no
not
problem.
notice. I did not notice. Maybe you would like to mention, or maybe you can check tomorrow also. You will have an opportunity. Yeah. Sorry, I did not notice that. Yeah.
No problem. No, depending on you are the guru for the whatever